Maybe we don't do that. Maybe we just handle it like an adult as it happens
Yeah.
and ignore it all day like I always do.
Oh, yeah. That's a happy birthday right there.
Yep.
Here, we believe that hope is something you practice. Strength is something you discover in the process of living. Every week, I sit down with someone who has walked through struggle and found perspective worth sharing. Today's conversation is about rediscovery, growth, and finding joy in the smallest of moments. I'm Dan Bradley, and this is your invitation. Welcome to Braving the Brightside. How's everyone doing today? On this glorious Friday, the 5th of September, it is beautiful out there. We are approaching fall. Feels like we've been in fall for a minute now. Thanks for sticking around. I apologize for my absence last week. Life started lifing, as the kids say on the streets. Yeah, for whatever reason, a couple different things happened. Kind of caught me off guard, and unfortunately, I wasn't able to record an episode. And I kind of feel like that kind of bled into me. Just kind of being in a funk for most of the week. You know, this is a big creative outlet for me. This is an important part of my life that I generally enjoy doing. So I realized after the fact that once I wasn't able to do it, I kind of just was in a funk for most of the week. Tried to shake it, and, I'm only human. I was able to shake it sometimes, but I think it affected me a lot more than I realized. But regardless, here I am. I'm back. Better Than Ezra. It's a band from the 90s. I apologize for that reference. But I'm excited to be back and moving forward. If there is a time where I'm not going to be able to do this, I'll be sure to let all of you know, all 20 of you that are listening. But that being said, let's dive into our weekly good news segment, shall we? This week was yet another week in the world where things happened. And as I always say before, and I'll say it again, it's important that we do know of things that are happening. It's also just as important that we don't solely focus on the bad things. Your soul needs good nourishment and light as well, just like plants. So I'm going to deliver some feel-good news to you right here, right now. And this one is steeped in humanity. Humans being awesome humans, humans showing humanity to other humans, which is arguably some of the best stuff in the world that you can hear about. So let's get into it, shall we? This comes from the Good News Network, which is becoming one of my favorite go-to websites. After doing laundry last Saturday, Ken Porter noticed a missed call on his phone from the local police department. When I returned the call, I learned that my 4-year-old had called 911 and struck up a conversation about soccer and swimming, Micah's father told GNN. What sounded like the start of a crisis turned into one of the most unforgettable moments of my 2 sons' lives. 18 police vehicles ended up at their home in Farmington Hills, Michigan, over the next day. A parade of kindness sparked by the child's enthusiasm. Instead of treating it as a misuse of 911, the officers invited my sons, Micah and Mitch, to tour their patrol cars, test the sirens, and speak on the loudspeaker. During the visit, Micah proudly mentioned that the next day would be his big brother Mitch's 7th birthday, and one of the officers mentioned he might stop by to celebrate. The next morning, as we were leaving for Mitch's birthday breakfast, nearly 10 police cars filled our street. Officers were waiting in the yard with gifts and made Mitch an honorary officer with a sticker badge and a toy police hat. Every single officer wished him a happy birthday, and the kindness didn't stop there. Later that evening, a second shift of officers returned, this time with a soccer goal net that they purchased, ready to play a game. They even introduced Mitch and Micah to the police canine dog named Kane. This simple act of kindness transformed into a story of empathy, joy, and community my sons will never forget, said Mr. Porter. We are deeply grateful to the Farmington Hills Police Department for showing what good policing looks like at its very absolute best. So that's a pretty good story. It's short, but sweet. But doesn't hit any less hard than my other ones. I'm not going to mince words here. shit's kind of fucked up out there right now, for a couple different reasons in a couple different areas. Trust out there is tough, man. Trust in people and organizations and places and in people, like I said, is kind of taking a hit, and it's kind of damaged, and humanity at its basic level sometimes gets lost with all of the other shit out there. And so when you hear the story about humans being decent humans to other human beings, it really does make you smile, and it reminds you kind of that we're all in this together. So despite wherever you land in terms of how you feel, all the bullshit politics that constantly get pushed into every situation out there, reading an article where it's just straightforward, people being really good to other people is refreshing, and it's needed. Stories like this are needed. So I'm going to keep trying to find them and keep telling you guys about them because it's important. All right, let's switch gears here. Let's get to the guests, shall we? I'm really excited for you guys to hear this conversation. I'm really excited for you to hear their story. What I love about Kel is her ability to be super deeply reflective while also finding joy, pure joy in small, everyday moments. She's very raw. She's very articulate. She's very smart. She's also incredibly funny. And I think her story is going to resonate with so many of you. Her journey ranges from a late autism diagnosis to grief to personal transformation, you name it. There's a lot going on in this story, and every piece of it is so important. Every piece of it is so interesting, and every piece of it is so well spoken by Kel. But enough of my words. Let's jump to the interview and let you guys meet Kel. All right? All right. Let's get to it. Today's guest is someone whose story hits deep. For anyone who's ever felt too much, too weird, or like they were just barely holding it together. Kel is a mom, a ceramic artist, a longtime grocery worker, and one of the most introspective, funny, and powerfully self-aware people I've had the honor of talking to. After both of her children were diagnosed as neurodivergent, Kel began a journey that would completely reframe her own life, receiving her own ADHD and autism diagnosis at 38. What followed was a kind of emotional excavation, grief, relief, unmasking, healing, and ultimately transformation. Her words are vivid, honest, and full of grace. I'm so excited to share this conversation with you. Thank you for being here, Kel. Kel, how are you?
Dan, I'm feeling pretty great.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I'm just going to throw this out there just because everyone should know, but happy birthday to you.
Why, thank you. It is my 42nd birthday, so this is the Douglas Adams' birthday, the meaning of life, the universe.
Wow.
So, pretty important.
That is important. That's incredibly important when you put it that way. Mm-hmm. I wish I knew that. I did give you a muffin for your birthday, a gluten-free muffin.
Appreciate
So I think that was pretty awesome of me.
Strawberry, delicious.
Yeah. I don't know if it's going to be your best birthday present yet, but I feel like it should be up there. Mm-hmm. So how's your life? What do you got planned for your birthday today? Anything cool?
Tacos.
Oh, yes.
We're going to start there. And I haven't got to any kind of gift opening yet with my family, but I did give some directions. So
okay.
I'm planning on being delighted. And I did get a trip from my parents to visit my sister in Portland, Oregon next month. And
nice.
I'm very excited about that.
How long are you going for?
5 days.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
That's all you need.
Right. Not too long, but just enough to like sit and breathe and see some beautiful things. Mm-hmm. I've never been to that part of the country. I'm excited for moss. Moss is one of my favorite things. I hear there's plenty.
Yeah, I imagine there is. I also have never heard anybody be like, I'm so excited for moss.
I mean, it's great.
That's awesome. Good for you and good for your love of moss. Honestly, Kel. That's great. Well, I work with Kel at the local grocery store.
It's a friendly place.
It is a friendly place. It's a very friendly place. Known you for about a little over a year now. Mm-hmm. And that intro was not me BSing you. You know, you are I think one of the reasons we connect is your dry sense of humor, which I thoroughly appreciate. So what about for this right now? What does the bright side look like for you right now?
Well, every day is something of a struggle, but I think I've learned that the mantra of, well, we're gonna just sort of try harder and do better next time isn't always helpful. I think I've sort of been telling myself that my whole life. And so now it's more of a, well, you're gonna forget things. Things are gonna fall through the cracks. Here we are again. I just realized my passport is expired. It's so much more of a hassle to apply for a new one instead of just renewing your old one. If you let it take 10 years to just renew it. Don't let it expire. But every passport I've received, I have allowed to expire because it just fades from my attention. And my attention is a lighthouse beam. And if you're in the black, you don't exist.
I'm the same way,
so
for sure.
I try to just give myself the grace and understanding that these things are going to happen. You are going to forget stuff. You're going to mess stuff up. And that's okay. Rather than really just doubling down on the, we're going to try harder message. Because of course we are. I'm always trying. But sometimes.
And we're all going to try harder. But, I think the important thing is also that you're just trying in general. That's the important thing. It doesn't have to be like The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, like every day work hard. Like you're doing your best every single day, no matter what.
True story.
Even if it's like 25% because you're exhausted, it still counts. That's great. What's something that's been bringing you joy lately?
The plants on my deck. I have a sail over top of the deck, so it's in sun, but not direct sun.
Okay.
And all of my plants get so happy in the summer out there. I have a jasmine bush that's blooming, and the smell of the flowers is just very regulating and wonderful. I also have a right now prospering avocado tree. And go baby, make me avocados in my own house. Please survive.
Damn, that is impressive if you can pull that off.
I know.
Also save a lot of money that way.
Jinxing myself, but this is my second time at it. The first one did not survive overwintering, but this one did.
Okay.
And so it's the second summer for it. About shoulder height on me now. And there's another sprout off the side.
Oh, man.
So just please.
Please keep me, I am enthralled by this. And please keep me in the loop as this is going.
Yes.
I will buy avocados off you.
I will be able to quit my job if things go according to plan. I
mean, your monthly budget alone will be massively changed because of that. That's awesome. I actually had a plant in here that I got from work. It was in this gorgeous navy blue pot that I loved. And then it was like dying in here the entire time. So I figured it looked really good in here, but then it was dying. It wasn't getting any sun. So I had to put it downstairs and let it thrive. So and that's about as far as my plant life went. I'm pretty terrible at it.
They tell you where they need to be.
Yeah. If you had to describe your life right now in one word, what would that word be?
I thought about this for a while, but I settled on a stretch.
I really like that response, by the way. A stretch.
My life definitely is a stretch. I'm juggling a lot of things, too many things, But I'm, certainly trying my best, like always, to do them and not just do them well. I feel like my story for a long time was that no matter how many things I was juggling, there was always one or two things that I really was not doing very well at. And that was always the message to, okay, juggle fewer things. So the amount of things I'm juggling now makes me feel really proud. Even if I'm not doing great at everything, I am showing up for everything I'm trying to accomplish. And that's still a lot. I mean, I mentioned the plants. There's plants, there's pets, the people, obviously, that I try to show up for and support. The multiple jobs I have. I work at the grocery store. I have my own ceramic business that is small but chugging along. My studio is one half of my.
You're turning a profit now, right?
Yes, certainly it pays for itself.
That's awesome.
And I teach at an art center. I teach beginners throwing class, and I teach a hand building / throwing class as well. So that's a lot of things to be juggling.
You say a throwing class?
That means working on the wheel. So
okay,
throwing is on the pot.
That makes sense. I just pictured you would just bring in different items every week and be like, all right, now we're going to throw this and see how far we can throw it.
Sounds therapeutic.
Yeah.
That comes after messed up.
Yeah. I'd be really good at that. So you're juggling a lot right now. You got a lot going on. I don't think I had any idea how much you had going on.
Well, I think, I mean, it suits me
Mm-hmm.
on some level. You know, I kind of thrive when there's a lot.
Yes, I feel that.
I think there's a certain amount of depression that comes with not having enough to do.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, it's easily, it easily crosses the line to too many things.
Yes, for sure. I feel that. I mean, I'm told like maybe just take a step back, maybe take a breath, don't fill your days up with so much stuff from bouncing all over the place, you know. But I feel like that's when I'm at my best, is when I'm juggling all these different things, you know. And sometimes I'm like, well, I should just sit down and play PlayStation for just a couple hours, and then I'm like, yeah, but I really should finish this story, or I should really do this book, or I should really, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm the same way. It's hard, but it's good. It's a good feeling.
It is. It is. A stretch feels good.
Yeah.
When you're doing it right, you know.
I love that. A stretch feels good when you're doing it right. Should get t-shirts made. Or at least bumper stickers.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. You want to jump into your story? Let the world know what's going on, where you're coming from, who you are.
All right.
How do you feel about that?
Mixed feelings, but it feels good. I mean, it feels good to be, it does. And I feel ready finally. You know, I was talking to my therapist about doing this podcast, and she said, just make sure you feel comfortable about what you're sharing. Share your scars, not your wounds. Yeah. And so that's what I'm going to try to do.
That's great. Yeah. And I think a lot of people out there are going to really appreciate you telling your story.
Well, that's the idea.
Yeah, you're going to help a lot of people. This is a topic that I am not super familiar with. So that's also why I was really interested in hearing your story and talking to you and bringing you in here. It's because this is definitely something which I imagine also a lot of other people out there could benefit to hear these people's stories, to hear your story. So how about you just take me back to a time when things felt especially difficult for you?
I would say when my kids were young was the hardest time in my life for me for a lot of reasons. I think there's sort of there's societal expectations of what it means to be a mom, and then there were the expectations I had of myself, and I think it was just so much harder even than I imagined it would be to meet my own expectations. I think was the hardest thing, and one of the greater, I think, tragedies of my life was how hard that time was. And the clarity came in stages. COVID hit, and so we were homeschooling, or remote schooling, and it gave me an opportunity to have a much clearer view of what learning was like for my kids. And I had the benefit of friends whose children had also struggled, and I was able to talk to them. And a good friend told me I should get them evaluated just to see what might be going on. And
how old are your kids during COVID?
My son was 8 and my daughter was 10.
Okay. Were there any signs that they were struggling in school beforehand, or was it just this kind of?
Not really. My son, yes. But it was hard to tell whether or not it was necessarily age appropriate.
Right.
There's a scale of kind of when you're going to be meeting milestones, and I think there's a feeling too with parents that if you get your child looked at, that you're giving them this attention in their own eyes and in the eyes of their peers that might be damaging.
Yeah,
that they'll see themselves as different, that their peers will see them as different, and I would urge parents to try to ignore that feeling, because it definitely delayed my response to my kids. And I think it was really helpful once I did get them evaluated to know just the small things that really helped.
Yeah.
And the accommodations they could then receive at school. And I think schools are hamstrung a little bit by the amount of resources they're able to pull, and they cannot just provide those for kids, even if they think they need them, if the parents don't ask for them.
Yeah,
you
sure.
have to have asked for those in order to get them. And it is not in the school's power to even suggest to you that they might be needed.
Yeah.
And again, I mentioned my friends, Jen Crawford.
Oh, nice.
Amazing in that.
That's amazing.
And she pointed me towards someone she knew who was basically like a special education doula, who knew the ins and outs of what schools required, and she knew the language to use to ask for it. And that was enormously helpful. So once my kids got evaluated, they both got an ADHD diagnosis. and like a few other sort of behavioral diagnoses, anxiety, etc. And so wanting to learn how to better parent them and better support them after those diagnoses, my husband and I started seeing a therapist to see, how do we do that? How do we support them? What's going to be the best method to sort of talk them through these moments of crisis? And the therapist pointed out that these conditions are very often genetic. So it's very likely that one of us has ADHD and or autism. And my thought at the time was, it's me.
You just kind of look at your husband like, yo, dude,
like,
what did you, this is on you.
This guy. But then I actually looked up, okay, so what is the criteria for diagnosis? What is ADHD and autism? What do they look like in girls and in women? And I was very much floored by what I started reading.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the stages of grief, or, there were many stages then to like this dawning realization that this is me.
You've had almost like the mirror kind of flipped on you now out of nowhere, and you're like, oh God, okay,
I've had this, and my rage against the patriarchy moment is that like the medical definition of ADHD for a very long time is how it presented in young boys, and this is the definition of it, and like it's when you believe you know what something is, you're not going to understand when you see it in another context, when it looks a different way. Oftentimes, girls with ADHD are described as sort of daydreamers or distracted.
Like flighty, just distracted women.
Yeah, just people who, yes, maybe can't focus, but in a completely different way than how it's presented in boys. The hyperactivity is mental. So you have, half a dozen trains of thought going at once. And obviously it looks like you're daydreaming, but it's because there's a whole lot going on. It's just internal. It doesn't, it's hard to clock. And sure, impulsivity. I was getting into trouble a lot as a kid. I could not get ahead of my trains of thought and then the impulse to act on them. There was just no thought involved. Yeah. And then I was like climbing on the gym roof, and I was very much in trouble for being on the gym roof. But I had, there was no criteria for eliminating something as a bad idea.
Yeah, exactly.
We were just already up there.
There's no reasoning there. You're like, yeah, hell yeah, let's do it.
And just like being overly emotional. I was needy, too much.
Yeah. So when you got this you eventually got diagnosed, right? Right,
I did.
And you got what was the official diagnosis for you?
ADHD combined type. So there's ADHD hyperactive, ADHD inattentive, and then there's both flavors and both. And I had to, in order to be eligible for medication, because it is a controlled substance. I have to annually sign a paper at my doctor's office that I'm not selling the drugs I'm taking.
Right.
I have to present my license when I go to the pharmacy to get them. They are amphetamines. But it's been life-changing.
Yeah.
I'm not taking an antidepressant anymore. I'm not depressed anymore.
Yeah.
I know what's going on. I know what I need in order to function.
Right.
And I know that it's really important to give yourself what you need to function, and store-bought is fine. If your brain doesn't make the right stuff naturally, store-bought's okay. Yeah. Because there's a lot of stigma about mental health, about being medicated. And it's been really life-changing to understand my brain is different and to accommodate it.
Yeah. I think you said it right, the stigma, like as someone looking kind of being outside looking in and a situation like this, immediately I think of like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, or the cliche of heavily medicated child because something might be wrong with them and they're taking these pills that they hate. But like what you just said, there's sometimes that's nothing wrong with something that your brain doesn't make, and then something helps you. Like I think it's important for people to hear, for sure, to not just rule everything out all at once.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that are typically diagnosed along with ADHD. It's called like a comorbidity. Oftentimes you're diagnosed with anxiety and with depression, and it's not that you don't have those things. Yeah. But usually someone is misdiagnosed with those things instead of being neurodivergent, because those are more easy to diagnose. and you develop them as a result of having been neurodivergent and undiagnosed. And I think if you are able to potentially diagnose somebody and support them through the formative years and honestly hellish years of, say, middle school and high school, they may not develop anxiety and depression.
Right. You just avoid that path altogether.
Right? These things come because they didn't receive support.
Yeah.
And maybe not. Maybe you can't avoid, I mean, in today's economy, it's not always easy to avoid these things. But,
very much so.
But that's the dream. That's the goal. That I'm at least giving my kids tools that I didn't have and helping them through these years. My daughter's 14. My son's 12.
Those are super formative years right there.
They're in 9th and 7th grade right now. And, it's tough out there.
It's already tough out there no matter what for these kids. So, I mean, absolutely, I can imagine. It's tough. You described your diagnosis as like a kind of grief, you know what I mean? Which I thought was really interesting. You're mourning what might have been. What did you have to let go of that in the process? You know what I mean? Like, what did you... Because you spoke to, man, if I'd known this when I was a kid,
I mean, I feel like there's a lot of shame that came from, wondering why I was the way I was and why I felt so different. And there's definitely like a look that people give you when you're being weird, and then kind of
I got a lot of looks, but
the steps you take to avoid that look, I feel like, and I took a very clinical approach to that. I really spent time kind of writing code for my brain and for my behavior that meant that I was behaving in a way that would make other people feel good and feel safe and feel like I'm a fun person to be. You're almost like putting on this like other suit, this costume, and then be like, okay, this is how I'm supposed to be in this social circle. This is, in this setting. Right. If I want a response, a positive response from the people I'm around, this is how I have to behave. And I have to really suppress these other tendencies I have that are definitely going to get this reaction that I've noticed that I'm too much in some way or another, or not enough. And I think it was really helpful, certainly at the time, but it was really unhealthy to have like no boundaries and be entirely willing to change myself completely.
Sounds exhausting too, honestly.
Yeah. And I mean, to the point where there's things about my behavior I can no longer help. If someone is speaking to me and they have an accent, I have that accent and I cannot stop that from happening.
Really?
Yes. And it makes me nervous that someone's going to think I'm making fun of them, but I cannot help it. And I think this mimicking behavior, mirroring somebody, I mean, it's a coping mechanism. It's a safety strategy, right? If this is what's good for you, I'm just going to mirror it right back, and I'm safe.
And we're going to move along. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And that's what masking is, and it's a huge part of being neurodivergent is learning to mask. And then later, learning how very likely unhealthy your masking was and learning to unmask.
Yeah.
And that's been a journey. It's been an incredible journey. I mean, obviously grief was a huge part of it because, what might I have avoided? What real emotional pitfalls might I not have experienced? But it's still a wonderful thing to know now that, okay, this is the picture. Finally I have the picture that came with the puzzle. I know how the pieces fit.
Yeah.
I know how to put this all together. It makes sense. Finally, it makes sense.
The relief that comes with that, I imagine, is pretty incredible.
It is. And I still have a hard time not cringing at myself. I can offer myself this like grace and understanding now, and certainly as things hit me now. But looking back, it's kind of still hard.
Yeah.
I'm still working on reframing it with like the new information. New shit has come to light.
Yeah.
And
you want to shed a different light on these memories that you have there where you're like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And people already, I have got the same thing. I have so many memories of being a child or a teenager or whatever, and cringing at these choices I made. So, and that's, I can imagine, in terms of everything you've learned now, shining a different light on that. But I like that you use grief as a word, because I feel like grief is usually reserved for something, I don't know, more straightforward and devastating in a way. So I like that you use grief as a way of being like looking back on this, like, I wish there was, like you said, I wish there was more of a diagnosis for girls than there was boys back then. Like there's grief over that, and choices that you made because you didn't know any better. But I also really like that you use grace as well. And I think we're on a hot streak right now on this podcast. I think we've used the word grace on every episode. And I want to keep it going because it's important. Grace is so important for the human soul every single day to have that grace. So I think it's also huge that you're trying to find that grace, not just in every day, but looking back on your memories. And it's important.
It's like the skeleton key to open up healing, really. It's the way into it.
Especially when you're
actually healing.
You said you get diagnosed at 38. Like, that's pretty big.
There's a huge chunk of my life that I didn't know what was going on. And I have to kind of revisit. I mean, I had built a lot by then and a lot of relationships.
Yeah.
Everyone in my family, I got married at 28. So I've been married 10 years when this happened. And just sort of trying to rebuild my relationships in a way that, hey, these things I was doing were unhealthy, actually. And I'm going to have to withdraw the way I've been behaving, because a lot of that had to do with how I'm supporting you. Yeah. And now I kind of also need to support me. And this is what that's going to look like. And being in the middle of something and then also rebuilding it at the same time has been challenging.
Yeah.
But I also have been given grace.
That's awesome.
Measurably helpful.
I mean, I found it, it's when you said you had to wear a mask, you were masking a lot of times when you were younger and stuff like that, because you're just trying to fit into these social settings and whatnot. And you're just trying to get through, how do you, when you separate your authentic self from your adaptive behaviors, that you've experienced your entire life, like developed to survive essentially, that's a really powerful language. I feel like a lot of people out there across the board, no matter what, if diagnosed, undiagnosed, can feel that, like, especially in their formative years, like, this is how I'm supposed to act, this is how I'm supposed to be, and they're masking. Can you walk us through what that unraveling and rebirth looked like for you in terms of how, especially when you already have these sustained relationships with people, and then you're like, okay, well, guess what? We got to kind of rebuild this a little bit. Can you speak to that a little bit and what that felt like, what that was like?
Well, it had a lot to do with what I started to absorb in terms of like podcasts and like reels on Instagram. I just tried to consume as much as I could about what other people's testimonials of what the neurodivergent or neurospicy
yes,
experience is. What is the neurospicy? And
which I had no idea neurospicy was a word. I told you this earlier, and then you sent that to me, and I was like, I love that. Yeah. And then I started doing some research. I'm like, oh my god, neurospicy is all over the place. So, yeah, sorry, I'm just a big fan of that word. Continue.
Well, neurodivergent versus neurotypical, or autistic and allistic is another kind of dichotomy of people with a more typical brain and people that are just wired differently. I mean, I like to think of it in terms of computing a lot. Like my wiring is different, but also my interfacing is different. So we're going to hear something, but the way I'm going to process that, both internally and externally, is just going to look different. And so that is, again, where that grace comes from and that understanding of like, okay, that's the way it's going to be. And you don't have to overanalyze why that may be. We just, and then we get to talk about like, oh, you thought that? I thought this. Here we go.
Yeah.
And I think once I, again, began to absorb what so many other people have experienced throughout their lives being neurospicy, there were so many things that I didn't realize were part of that I was like, oh, one of them is like an intense like sense of justice and unfairness. I remember we were learning in school about the slave trade, and I lost it. I was like sobbing in the classroom. And of course, obviously, this is really embarrassing because I have always sobbed in public about things.
Yeah.
And it has been one of the tragedies of my life to have to endure what that intense show of emotion does to me and then does to like other
people around you
in the room, and trying to like learn about history in 8th grade or something. And I just like something that you didn't think was part of it all of a sudden is. And I had that
It
experience
just
so many
affects you
times
so intensely.
of like,
Wow.
just like feeling things very emotionally is definitely part of it. And I think it's something I sent you too, just like the whole comeback of, well, I think everybody has like a little bit of ADHD or something. And it's not that that's not true. I mean, plenty of people don't remember where they put their keys or get distracted by something. But the neurodivergent experience is that those things happen far more often. And the effects that they have on their lives. I mean, people lose their jobs, people get in car accidents and, are potentially killed or very badly injured. These things have more effect on their lives. So the frequency of something happening, the intensity that they're experiencing it at, and then the effects those things have on their life in general.
Yeah.
And that's the difference between someone who's neurodivergent and someone who's neurotypical. And all of the things that I learned were neurodivergent traits that I had no idea were connected in any way in my behavior and in my personality. It was really empowering after a certain point. And there came a point where things flipped and I started getting excited.
Yeah.
Because a lot of neurodivergent people start their own businesses, are artists, are really creative people who figure out a way to make things work for themselves and are often self-employed too, because the structure of a typical work environment doesn't work for them.
Yeah.
They can't make it work.
That's really interesting.
And
you can kind of flip it into your own like driving force.
Yeah. What starts as something of like, oh, I can't make this thing work that I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
But then when you're forced to find an alternative, you can stumble upon, oh, but this like other way of doing it really works. And actually, I can make a lot of progress and do a lot of good things once I structure things to accommodate the way I'm wired, the way I work.
Yeah.
And I'm lucky that I do get to like go to a job and work outside of my house, because I don't think I would do well on my own schedule, with my own frame of rule. Yeah. It would not be best for me. However,
I mean, I know for a fact I would not.
No.
For sure.
But still, the place I work has a mantra of trying to do things a little bit better all the time. And it's really given me this freedom to know that I can kind of change my approach or something. I can try it differently this time. It never has to be static or rigid or the same every time.
Yeah.
And I'm given the freedom to kind of structure my day how I need it to go. And I think that has made it possible for me to work at a sort of a regular job for so long, just because of the freedoms within that work.
Wow. I mean, that's incredible. I mean, I could feel when you said like you're actually excited because you can turn this now and be like, okay, now I can actually like make this work for me and with me now.
Yeah.
So I imagine that had to be super freeing. It had to feel pretty good.
Yeah.
That's awesome. We'll be right back after this.
Your journey back to yourself begins now. Welcome to Haven on the Adolam, a thoughtfully curated retreat set on 40 acres of pine forest, where meandering trails lead to a spring-fed lake at its heart. What began as a simple family home has grown into a sanctuary for guests from around the world, a place to rest, reconnect, and rediscover what truly matters. Whether you're seeking solitude, a romantic escape, or time in nature with loved ones, Haven offers quiet beauty, cozy comfort, and the renewal only the outdoors can bring. Go to haveninthedalamlake.com to reserve your spot.
Welcome to the library of Daniel Bradley, where horror meets humor, and every story drips with the unexpected. Unlock exclusive tales you will not find anywhere else. Neon nightmares, dark comedy twists, and strange characters who linger long after the last page. By joining Patreon, you're not just supporting a writer, you're stepping inside the library itself. Behind the locked door, you'll find early releases, member-only stories, and a front row seat to the bizarre. Dare to enter? Visit patreon.com/Daniel666time and claim your key. The library is open. Are you coming in?
Welcome back. You said it's hard to thrive as a zebra when you imagine yourself to be nothing more than a failed horse, which is brilliant. That line hit me pretty good, pretty hard. Can you unpack what that realization meant to you?
I think it was more just in the context of why are labels important? You know, why is it important to me to have a diagnosis? Why is that important in terms of offering grace and understanding to myself or trying to play to my strengths and support my weaknesses?
Yeah.
I think this is something that, you know, everyone is kind of encouraged to do or sort of knows the boundaries of, you know, trying to do better and the circumstances that would help them. But I think that you need a healthy narrative in your mind of sort of what's happening to you and how you're operating.
Yeah.
And the story that you're telling yourself about yourself is really important. And I think if there's been enough experience of trying to do something and failing at it, the narrative can turn pretty dark.
Very sure.
And I could not see something through. To have so many ideas and so much creativity, but no follow through.
Would you start projects or start these things and then just not, it would just peter out very quickly? Or?
I mean, and that's if it even got far enough to start it. I mean, there's like a million businesses that have, you know, been born and died just in an afternoon while I'm thinking about stuff. You know, I was going to go to India for a year and listen. I get a lot of ideas and I get really excited about them. And then comes the voice of like, yeah, but you're not gonna actually do it.
Yeah.
And I don't do it. And should I have done it? Maybe it was a really shitty idea. I don't know. And to not know myself, to be so confused by myself.
To have your own voice slam the door shut on an idea like that.
It's a lot of self-sabotage. Because even if you get to a certain point with something and you abandon it, you know, how many times do you go through, you know, steps 1, 2, and 3 and then fall off the wagon at 4 before you tell yourself you're never going to even do anything and you don't start anything.
Right.
So for me, I think the diagnosis and learning about how my brain works tackled this in particular and starting medication. I knew how to structure things to achieve follow through. That's been the transformation for me.
Very cool.
And understanding, you know, in terms of like interpersonal relationship, what boundaries are. Learning about boundaries. Yay!
It's very exciting.
Knowing when I don't even need to say sorry for saying no, because I know that something is, I don't have room for that. You know, I don't have room on my plate for that. No, thank you. And I'm not going to dither about why. I'm not going to spiral because I can never do anything. You know, I don't need to do all that. I know why it's hard for me to follow through on things. It's okay. But I also have a much better sort of criteria of what I'm even going to onboard. You know, I don't have to think about all the things I don't ever do if I say no to one thing.
Right.
I know that there's things I'm tackling. I'm happy with that. I don't need to do this too. I don't need to prove myself to anybody. And I also don't need to feel it as rejection when someone else is drawing a boundary. They're saying no.
That's a big one.
They're saying they're doing this other thing. And I say, great.
Yeah.
You know, that's you and that's
it's not a reflection on you or how they feel about you or, you know, they're not, you know, I shutting you down. It's just.
I have my rules. I have my social programming, my new and improved social programming, where I know that if I've been calm with someone and if I've been kind with someone and they're coming at me in a certain way, then that they're going through something.
Yeah.
You know, and that's them. And that's a them problem, but it also allows me to give room for that for them. You know, if that's something that doesn't have to do with me that they're reacting to. I don't need to feel bad for, you know, whatever they're saying.
That's huge. I mean, I think a lot of people could benefit from that mind frame for sure. Like someone's saying no thank you, or cancellation, or just does not reflect on you as a human being. It's not them judging you. It's, to have a little bit of space for them realizing, okay, they can't do that. It's fine. It's fine. It's everything's fine.
Yeah, that's not
instead of being like, why the fuck would you say that to me? Like, how dare you? You don't want to do this with me, or
just like, what? This is a small thing. Why are you, why are you reacting to me this way? And I may not know why they're reacting, but I also don't have to spend time wondering whether it was something I did. I know it wasn't, and I can, just completely eliminate the emotional trauma of trying to figure out what I did wrong.
I mean, that's something I still struggle with. I'll spiral once in a while, like, I'm like, oh my God, why? They never even just text me back. Just want to go see Superman. It's no big deal.
There was one girl that said, do you have trouble achieving your goals simply because they're your goals? Also, does the idea of someone you love being angry with you make you want to die? You must have trouble sitting still disorder. And it really spoke to me, because there's the definition of what it feels like to have a thing, and then there's what a thing looks like on the outside. And, you can very clearly see who's writing the definition for what something is, and how just vastly different something will look like to someone versus what it's like to actually live it. It's a far more emotional experience than it looks like.
I'm sure.
But I think the inner narrative you're telling yourself about yourself, and understanding that you're not a failed horse. You're a perfectly normal zebra. And it's amazing to finally learn the definition of a zebra, and, the full definition of a zebra, especially if you think what the definition is, and you think that it doesn't describe you.
Yeah.
That finally I learned the full definition, and I realized, I'm actually a textbook case of this. I thought I was weird my whole life. And I think that I have a strange relationship now with the word weird, because you kind of onboarded in this like self-righteous,
for sure.
I'm just this ungovernable chick.
Yeah.
I was 15. I stopped shaving.
I don't fit in any mold. I'm just a weird kid.
That's me. And like, I am such a basic bitch, neurodivergent person. Like, just like the textbook definition.
Yeah.
I'm not weird at all. I learned. I'm like so basic. It's just I'm in this other category over here. I'm in the zebra category, and who knew?
That's great. Basic bitch, neurodivergent.
That's me.
You described as sort of rewriting your own behavioral code. What are some lines of code that you're proud of now? Is there a certain thing where you're like, yeah, this is I can do this. I do this.
Well, I mean, what we were talking about a little bit with boundaries, for sure, and unmasking, definitely.
These are both big ones, yeah, for sure.
And it can be a little bit unnerving to be myself, certainly around more people, and to not worry about how it's going to be perceived. I think
when you meet somebody new, do you immediately have that feeling of like, okay, how shall I?
Well, I think it depends on whether or not they're also neurodivergent, and it's almost uncanny how easy it is to clock someone else who's neurodivergent. Okay. Because we vibe together immediately.
Yeah.
You meet someone and you're like, oh, they get it. That's what that is.
Yeah.
And so I've got news for anyone who like really vibed with me up until now.
I'm like thinking back, I'm like, when I first met Kel.
Well,
shit.
It is something to ask yourself.
Yeah.
And it's advice that I have that if you wonder, maybe get it checked out, because it's been life-changing for me. But I think unmasking for me has been just the line between like healthy and unhealthy, and knowing where my boundaries end and someone else's begin.
Yeah.
And knowing that even though I'm still going to try to tackle any situation because of what I think it needs, and try to be that, I'm definitely going to draw the line when it comes to how exhausted I'm willing to be for somebody else, or, how whether or not I'm really needed, because somebody could call me and need to go to the hospital, and I would be like kind of low key excited to like be the person tackling the situation and being the person that they called. And I think certainly I would be with that person and do it, but I would want to move in, like be on their couch and make them
Right.
sit. And
I'm all in. I'm going to be the superhero that you need in your life.
And I think that has to do then with what I want and what would make me feel good, and trying to figure out, okay, what does this situation need that it would be healthy for me to provide? Where is that boundary? And understanding, like, am I doing this for them?
Right. Almost taking yourself out
for
of
me.
it. And yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah, it's interesting.
So that, and just learning how to maintain that perspective has really kind of just like kept me with kind of a full enough tank to then be able to tackle the things I need to tackle, have the follow through I need, the things that matter to me, because I'm not just getting pulled in all different directions by my desire to feel needed, by knowing that I have a really good capacity for tackling a problem and being there for somebody.
Also speaks to your authenticity then at that point too, for sure.
Yes, some of it's unavoidable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're incredibly candid about how hard parenting is in the beginning there, especially as an undiagnosed neurodivergent mom. What kind of helped you climb out of that, Well, I guess it was the diagnosis, right? I mean, but like what helped you, was my cat. Did you? Cat?
Yeah.
Sorry. I get really excited when I hear him. Does that question make sense?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think I had learned certainly growing into adulthood to sort of, cobble together a structure for myself to operate. I definitely felt like I left home, I went to college, and I felt like everybody else had been sort of like building a house like up until that point, and then they left home and they moved into it. And I like walked into this construction zone and was like, wait, everybody else has a house?
Yeah.
I have some material over here, but I don't know what. And I really didn't have a healthy way to create a structure and, kind of just govern myself. But I slowly pieced together like enough things that I could adult. I had a job, I'm doing things. I, had a long-term boyfriend. We moved in together. I'm adulting.
Right. I'm doing all the things.
I'm doing all the things, and it's not always easy, but I can do them. And, I didn't understand why sometimes I needed to like lie down for a day to recoup from adulting or, just sort of existing. But hey, we all have our things.
Yeah.
And I think that then having children and having kind of all of that sort of get thrown out the window, you don't have the freedom or the time to refuel or recoup energy. You're just constantly going at
You're in it
from
all
now
the time.
on.
Yeah.
And not only do you have to do all the things to cope that you've been doing for yourself, you also now have to do them for one, and then not long after 2 other people. Everything really fell apart. And this is oftentimes when women are diagnosed, when their children are young. This is a flashpoint for diagnosis for a lot of women because things really fall apart. And so something happens and you see treatment and, but I just, I kind of just white knuckled it for a while. And it wasn't until my kids started sending up flags and they got their diagnosis that then I was diagnosed. And that is the second most diagnosed time for moms.
Yeah. Wow.
When their children are diagnosed.
That's heartbreaking in a way. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they hear, oh, it's genetic. And then, or they're filling out assessments for their children and they go, wait.
Holy shit.
This is me too.
Yeah.
And so it was illuminating to have fallen apart, but it was really messy to go through.
Yeah.
And
to go through as a mom.
And I really I want to, when my children are adults, I expect to have some conversations. Like if I try to talk to them about it now, it'd be for me, and they're not old enough to have processed and to know exactly what even they want from me. But I'm ready to be accountable to what their experience was like.
Wow.
Having a mom that was hard to rely on to be emotionally stable.
Yeah.
I was not.
Yeah.
And that's still something that I struggle with. But so this is the grace. I'm modeling what it's like to have a hard time being emotionally stable and working through that. And they're watching me do that. They're watching me fuck up and deal with the consequences of having fucked up and be accountable for the consequences.
I mean, that's big. That's big for them too,
right?
to see that.
I don't know that kids learn a lot of things without it being modeled for them. And I think that's one of the sort of underlying things that people don't always think about when they say shit like it takes a village. It's not just that it takes a lot of cooperation and a lot of hands to get things done. It takes a lot of people with different skills modeling how to live to show children what they're capable of and how they can be. And I know that if I put it all on my shoulders to model all the things that I would like my kids to learn, there are things I can't do, really. And I'm just not going to be a good example for how to do those things. And I kind of need to stop holding myself to that standard because it's impossible to meet.
Yeah, it's not feasible.
So I hopefully have a range of people around my kids, certainly in the variety of people in my family and my husband's and beyond that can show them, and they've been lucky in a lot of their teachers and their support staff at school that they have a range.
That's incredible. Yeah.
Hope for anyway.
Super important for sure.
These are people that are good at this, that, and the other thing that maybe I'm good at.
Right.
And someone's modeling that for them.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. You said being proud of your parenting today is such a victory, which was awesome to read. What does that pride look like on a Tuesday morning, say? What's a moment recently that made you go, damn, I'm fucking doing this?
Well, my daughter has had a hard year this past year, and being able to figure out, okay, like what we've been doing up till now isn't working. How do we
your daughter's 14 now?
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
Yeah. And I remember those years. And I think it's hard sometimes to watch your kids struggle and not just drown in how triggering it is.
Yeah.
Because you maybe struggled the same way. And to not make it about yourself, certainly, when you're responding to them, even if you're kind of drowning internally. And to really listen to what their experience is like. I've had to train myself out of, I get it. When I talk to my daughter, she doesn't want to hear that I get it. She wants me to know that this is an entirely different thing that is unique to her that she is experiencing.
Right.
And so, it's important to validate their experience, but validation isn't always, I went through that. I know what you mean. Validation is, it makes sense that you're feeling this.
Yes.
Yes. The conclusions you have drawn emotionally.
Doesn't have to be comparing stories every time.
It absolutely makes sense that you're feeling this way. And then, you have to even be able to, for them, express where they're at emotionally to even get to the validation part. And that can be really hard too, just having language for what they're feeling. But my daughter did a lot of work herself, kind of going to therapy and trying to figure out that, the moment, even if the moment is terrible that you're experiencing, that she is not the moment. The moment is awful. The moment will pass, and she will still be herself on the other side of it. And to know that she's gonna try on pants that don't fit, and we don't have to then begin an inner monologue about what a horrible piece of shit we are. Right. I think anybody, men, women, children, adults can understand. It's really tough to try on clothes.
It is.
And God, when you're 14, Jesus, you could not give me enough money to go through that stage again. And so I make sure my daughter goes to therapy. I make sure my son goes to therapy. I have medication available when they want it. My son does not want to take ADHD medication. My daughter does. And we're figuring it out. And I think it's definitely been a journey with parenting to get to where we are now. And I'm not saying I've got it figured out, because I absolutely do not.
Is there ever really a point where you figure it out, honestly?
I don't think I'm going to get there, but that's okay. That's it right there, knowing that
it's okay.
We're going to, and that's both my message for any parents and also what I'm trying to model for the kids to on board. Like, it's not going to get it right every time, and that's okay, because the doomsday message of I fucked up and nothing will ever be okay again, it doesn't help anybody.
It's kind of what you said at the top of this,
Right.
It's not just, I'm going to work harder at this, I'm going to work harder at this. It's you're trying.
Yeah.
You're working already.
You're working hard already.
And it's fine.
Yeah.
It's going to pass.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned helping your kids build the tools you never had.
Right.
If you could hand your younger self one of those tools, what do you think it would be?
I think it would have been my relationship with school that would have changed the most. I failed out of college, and I think that I might have been able to give myself the right tools to be able to be responsible. I probably wouldn't have gone to college right out of high school. I may have tried to learn a little bit about more of what I wanted to do and what I wanted to be before spending all that money. And I think learning to just who I'm accountable to and who I'm really trying to please, because I think I made choices as a kid and as a young adult to try to make people in my life proud of me. And while that's important, it's not that's not the most important. And I think I definitely pursued college, and I pursued a particular degree because I thought this is, the path to people being proud of me. And this is the thing you're supposed to be doing. And then when it was too much and I couldn't keep going, again, it was part of this now narrative that I'm telling myself about my life, and it was definitely not a positive part of that narrative.
Yeah.
And I think I would have liked to know that my brain is different, that I process things differently, and how that shows up for me, and then be able to accommodate for that when it comes to things like school and being able to meet those expectations, those external expectations. That's what I would have picked.
That was great. Man, that was beautiful. So nowadays you find solace in My Favorite Murder, Cermaics, Sean and Patrick Kelly mashups.
Yes.
Tell us about how these things scratch that little itch in your brain that you feel like your brain needs.
Well, I think I really enjoy things that are somehow opposing factors, but coexist at the same time. So my favorite podcast is called My Favorite Murder. And two ladies in California started it in January of 2016. And I only started listening to it about a year ago. And it's been really great. Georgia and Karen are the two ladies. And Georgia, I think, has always been open about having an ADHD diagnosis. And I think it was like 8 years into the podcast before Karen said, I think I'm an undiagnosed person with ADHD. And I was like, Karen, I could have told you that years ago. But it's a true crime comedy podcast, which is, sounds strange, right? The comedy and the true crime. But it's, I don't think it's a surprise to anybody that humor is a way to process emotion. And so they're telling each other stories about, arguably really horrible things and maybe some of the worst things that can happen to people. But they're making jokes to one another about it. And the way they support one another is really a beautiful thing. And they are very open about their own flaws and the fact that they go to therapy all the time. And I think just having them in my ears makes me makes me feel less alone. At 3:00 in the morning, if I need my best friends to be laughing with me, I can have that.
Yeah.
And it's been a really great support tool, and also just, no road rage anymore.
Yeah.
to have them there in the car with me.
For sure.
So the juxtaposition of the comedy and the true crime, it scratches an itch.
Yeah,
And,
I get that. I'm a huge fan of horror comedy. That's why I like to write horror comedy, because the juxtaposition of being scared shitless and then also just laughing your ass off is phenomenal. Or vice versa, laughing your ass off and then being scared shitless.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that. It definitely scratches an itch.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
It's more complicated.
Yeah.
Just the one thing works.
Yeah.
Salty sweet.
Salty sweet. Exactly.
The best.
You get it. All right. So you sent me music from Sean and Patrick Kelly.
Yes.
Which is insane. I'm going to see if I could hopefully link like one of their videos to the podcast description episode.
Yeah.
You just came across these guys on Instagram?
Well, I think they're local. I know that they've talked about being in the Philly area, greater Philly area. So that might have been part of it, just that there's somehow something overlapped in my algorithm. But they record songs and one of them is typically doing some kind of like foot percussion, and one's playing the guitar, and they are both singing a different song.
Yeah, it's wild.
At the same time.
It's wild. Yeah.
And they do a lot of mashups where it's just a small clip of a song. And so each of them plays and sings a small part of maybe 5 or 6 different songs, and the other one is also doing that, but they're 10 different songs altogether.
It doesn't, and it flows so much better than it has any right to flow.
No, but it is just the most wonderful thing to listen to, and it's the complexity of it is just delightful. And
I'm going to tell you, you sent that to me, and I listened to it and I watched it. I was like, this is incredible. But also it really just like, okay, this honestly makes sense. Like when you're like, this is kind of my brain at 3 a.m.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, all right. Yeah, I get that for sure.
No, I've listened to, I think, all their videos, and it's really great.
Yeah, that's cool. Last but certainly not least, let's talk about your creativity. I know you spoke to, you almost turned your diagnosis into like a superpower, and then you flipped it and you're like, okay, let me use this for the greater good of humanity and your humanity. And you have opened up a ceramics business, right?
Yeah. Well, I started it before my diagnosis, but and that had a lot to do with my work schedule at the time.
Mm-hmm.
My kids were really young, so they'd go to like preschool and kindergarten in the morning, and I finally had, for the first time, like free time, because I worked nights. My kids were too young to be in school all day, and when they were gone in the morning, I was like, what can I be doing with this time? I finally have time.
Yeah.
Moms of young kids finally get no time. And there was an art center not far away from where I lived, and I paid just like a monthly rent and had a key and could just, bring all my own materials, but I could use the space, because ceramics as a passion is a tough one if you don't have access to a studio. I've always been jealous of both my siblings who are writers. Like, you can write anywhere with so many different materials, and look at you, able to be creative wherever the hell you want. And I need so many tools in order to make pottery. My brother pointed out that it's also easy to feel guilty that you're not doing it, though. Like, if you can do it at any time, then what are you doing if you're not doing it? And that's
so very true.
That was my bright side of my creative passion. Like, okay, well, if I'm not in the studio, I can't be doing it, and therefore I needn't feel guilty about that.
That's a really good way to look at it,
that's
honestly.
The flip side.
Yeah.
But I think once I started again, I finally came to realize that I had too many boxes of pottery in my house, and I was encouraged to realize this also by the other people I lived with, and so I just started going to markets and selling it, really just to get it out of my house. But people liked it, and I started kind of figuring out what types of things people like to buy. I think it's a really fun way to be creative, is to imagine like a need and then to fill that need. One of the things I started making, and it was really just like the bottom part of a spout that I'd thrown for a teapot, and it was just this tiny little cup thing that had sort of an uneven edge. And I thought, this is cute, this is pretty, what am I going to do with it? I ended up gluing a magnet into the bottom once it was fired and glazed, and it was for bobby pins. So you just hold the bobby pin near it basically, and the magnet grabs it.
Oh,
It's this little, like sunburst thing on your counter full of bobby pins, and people love them. I mean, someone came to my market that had bought one before, and his eyes were really big. He was like, "My girlfriend, the bobby pins were everywhere, and now they're always in the thing." And it's, I mean, it's a small thing, but it feels really good.
Yeah, hell yeah.
To have like discovered with my creativity a problem solved.
Yeah. That like actively helps someone's life, no matter how small it may be. But like
that's what I'm there for.
It literally impacts their life. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So I enjoy it. I think craft is this thing that's like between art and I don't know, plumbing, where like it's a need.
It's like almost like a trade, but a need.
It's a function. You're making something useful.
Yeah.
I think that's why making crafts has been more my passion. I do like art. I make art. I paint. I write. But the fire in me comes from making something that has a purpose and a use. That just really makes me feel good.
That's awesome. That's great. I could see the fire in your eyes as you explained that to me. That was great. That was super intense. I mean, you've built this whole vibrant life now, pottery, plants, teaching, dogs, tree frogs.
Yeah, well, the tree frog, okay, so it's my birthday. The tree frog came into my life. Her name is Jane Hopper. She showed up on my birthday 3 years ago in my house. I had been given for my birthday.
So Jane had just showed up at your house.
Yeah. I've been given shelving to store some of my plants in kind of a more dynamic way instead of just on this, shelving thing that was pushed up next to the window of my sliding glass doors onto my deck because that's where the sun was good. But it was really jumbled and it was kind of disorganized. So I had shelves. I'm moving all the plants. And then once I moved them all, there was this little gray lump left on the shelf. And it was this little tree frog. And I don't know where she came from. Gray tree frogs are native to this part of the world. So the plants had been going out onto the deck and coming back inside. She could have hitched a ride that way.
Yeah, she just jumped on.
She could have come from the plant nursery, maybe. I mean, because like they're shipping things from all over the world, I imagine. Plants are coming from all over.
Yeah.
Maybe she hitched a ride from some distant land. I don't know. But
very cool.
I have a tree frog.
That's awesome.
She came to me on my birthday and I bought her a little habitat, and I have to feed her live crickets because she's not interested in anything that doesn't move. She has to get her hunt on.
I respect that.
Right? So now I know how to care for crickets.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's pretty great.
Very cool.
And she's sick.
Did you ever think this life would be possible for you? Was there ever a point where, you ever thought this would be your life?
I mean,
it seems pretty beautiful. It seems pretty awesome.
No, I didn't think I'd get to this point where I'd be able to have this much follow through for this many different things. And that is, that's definitely a thing that feels like victory. Even though it's not, I haven't crossed a finish line or anything, but I feel like I have enough tools to understand myself and how I operate. And I've certainly hopefully built enough understanding into the people around me that they'll work with me on that. And it's still a journey to figure shit out.
Yeah.
But I'm here for it, and I'm more excited about it than I ever have been. It doesn't just feel like something I'll never get, that I'll never understand why I am the way I am. I'm no longer such a mystery to myself.
That's awesome.
And yeah, I just feel like I'm finally at like the starting line whenever I'm doing something, instead of like 2 miles back that way,
way
stuck
behind
in the woods, and everyone else is the starting line.
Yeah.
Like I'm there too now.
That's great.
And so I feel like even as shit comes at me, I will handle it. I have a certain amount of faith in myself that I'll be able to handle it, even if it's messy. We're gonna get there.
Yeah, it'll still get handled.
Yeah,
no matter how messy it gets.
Figure outable.
And that's the nice thing about life, right? There's no the finish line. Finish line is when you're done, you know, and the whole process up until the end there is just that's the whole kit and caboodle there. That's the fun. That's the fun part. You wrote to me Hope and joy are revolutionary acts of resistance. I love that. How do you protect your joy when the world tries to take it? Especially nowadays, sometimes you look at the news or you turn on your phone or anything like that. It seems like it tries to take it pretty often. So how do you keep that joy?
I mean, it's a whole big dumpster.
It's very loud out there. It's very, very loud.
There's a lot. And there's a certain amount of that that's like meant to distract us. I feel
yeah, for sure.
Like even worse stuff that that there's like smoke and mirrors to disguise. And I think definitely I'm tempted to just like ignore it all and focus on me and not be distracted by it. But I think that's a pretty privileged perspective. I don't my kids are watching me. I want them to know that you can't ignore the suffering of the people around you, that the misfortune of your neighbor is your misfortune, just as the good fortune is your good fortune.
Yeah.
We're all in this together. And while it's pretty tempting, if you're at all involved, to then become bogged down by feelings of hopelessness and apathy, that then joy becomes the resistance. That being able to both be aware of all the awful things going on and still maintain your hope and really any amount of joy, that's the the personal revolution that I'm waging within myself. And I think I ask myself, who's going to benefit if I give up? It's the people that are pissing me off. So we're going to keep at it. And I have little things that I try to do. I've been sending some postcards. That's one form of resistance that people are doing. It's harder to ignore paper mail. I've been sending postcards. I certainly am trying to vote with my dollar. And that's a strategy I've had for a long time.
Yeah.
Every dollar you spend is a vote. You're voting for business practices. You're voting for what that company is then doing with their money. What their lobbyists are doing. It's a lot to try to be aware of, and it can very easily be overwhelming. And it is okay to take a mental break from being aware of all that.
Yeah.
I certainly am not watching the news right now. I'm sending money to organizations that are doing things. And it's also important to be aware of, within any revolution, there's somebody that's got to cook. There's so many roles that are valid in the revolution. Not everybody needs to be in the street. I am so full of admiration for the people that are in the street.
Yeah.
I think it's important too to find a way to support the movement, however you're able, and to slot yourself in there for what makes sense for your lifestyle.
Exactly.
And what you're able to contribute.
Even the smallest amount.
Right. I have some disposable income. I'm sending that here and there.
If someone listening today is struggling, undiagnosed, drowning in shame, wondering if they're just weird or too much, what do you want to say to them?
Well, I would like to say that therapy is good. That it changed my life. I've been in therapy for more than 4 years now. And there's some days that we just sort of chit chat about stuff. You don't always have a huge breakthrough or a huge meltdown to talk about, but to be processing how you process. I like to say
I love that.
It doesn't matter.
To be processing how you process.
Yeah.
That's great.
And it doesn't matter what kind of brain you're driving around in. It's good to take it in for an inspection. You don't know what you don't know. And I would love to address undiagnosed neurodivergent people that may be listening, but by nature you don't know who you are.
Yeah.
But maybe look at how that is defined, especially if you're a woman, because there's a lot of misinformation out there about what ADHD is and what autism is. And if you call it a spectrum, I think that brings the visual of like a long, straight line segment, and, you fall somewhere on that, but it's much more of a landscape or, say like a circular grid.
The spectrum seems like something people throw out there as, there might be something there, a tick, or there might, Like even, I think they might be on the spectrum.
Might be on the spectrum.
I might be on the spectrum.
And, that is, I think, the terminology we're working with now, ASD or autism spectrum disorder is, fairly common way, especially since Asperger's is, no longer used because he was did terrible things.
Oh.
Did terrible things. So we try to use that word now.
Good God. All right, good to know.
Right. But it's still, it's going to be a variety of things. And you're going to have maybe a little or a lot of each of these different things. And my neurodivergence is going to look different from everyone else's neurodivergence. I'm going to have more or less of these things. I have some like sensory issues, certain sounds and certain smells. And, if I'm experiencing too much sensory input, I am entirely overwhelmed. And that, other people are going to have more or less of that trait than me. And if you don't have that same experience, I think it's very easy to say, well, I don't have any of that.
Right.
And it's important to know that it's going to look different for you.
For each person.
Yeah.
So what does Braving the Brightside mean to you now?
That the bright side is always there. You just have to find the right perspective, and to understand enough about what you're going through and sort of have gained maybe some of the wisdom of having gone through it before you can see the bright side. But it is, stitched in silver underneath everything you go through. And if you can bravely look at your own experience, your life, and kind of take in all the, cringeworthy beauty of the whole thing, that without the ability to do that, you'll miss it. You'll miss the bright side. You'll miss the part of it that makes it worth it.
Wow. Yeah.
So it requires being brave, I think, to see the bright side, because you need to kind of stand back and have that perspective.
Yeah.
But that's what we're doing.
That is what we're doing. And you've done it phenomenally well with grace and an crazy amount of strength. Your story is incredible. It's awesome. And thank you for coming on here and bearing a part of your soul and cringing. And also, just explaining to me, not just me, but anybody else listening, like, what you've gone through, what that looks like, and the importance of taking a step back and looking back at your life and stuff like that. And it's awesome. Let's throw out what's your Instagram for? Do you have like a homepage or anything for your ceramics that people can visit?
Well, I have a little bit of a mental block now when it comes to social media. I have not been posting anything, but I do have a business Instagram. So my business name is Darling Studios. My last name is Darling. And my Instagram handle is at darling_studios. And I will hopefully post things at some point.
Is that where people could reach you and see your products and reach out to you and see? Okay.
Yes.
Cool.
I don't have a platform to sell online right now, but I do local markets. My next one is in Malvern on September 19th.
Okay.
In the evening in Burke Park. And
Very cool.
I'm excited. I've been making cauldron mugs.
Oh.
Say like witches, little cauldrons.
Nice. Just in time for Halloween.
Yes.
That's great. Also, how have I not touched on the fact that your last name's Darling and how badass that is?
I tell my husband it's the only reason I married him. That's not true, but I think I'm hilarious.
Yeah, you are. You're pretty hilarious. I'll give that to you. Well, Kel, thank you so much for being on here on Braving the Brightside with me.
Well, thank you for wanting to talk about these things.
Yeah.
I think, that's your way of supporting people and of trying to raise people's voices and making them feel heard. So thank you for the work that you do.
Oh, well, listen, it's my pleasure. And let's keep fighting a good fight with joy and hope, shall we?
Let's.
Kel, thank you so much.
Thank you, Dan.
I want to thank Kel for being here, for being so open and being so brave and completely letting her guard down and letting everyone hear her, see her, and know her story. Also on her birthday, nonetheless. So happy birthday once again to Kel. If you see her, tell her happy birthday. Or if you're listening in your car, yell it out the window. Or if you're walking down the street, yell it at your neighbors. Just make sure you're yelling out loud, happy birthday, Kel, at some point in time today. Kel, thank you so much again for being on the show. your voice, your story. All of it is powerful, and it is beyond an honor to have you on the show. As we wind down on this episode, I want to leave you with this. Healing isn't only about hard work. Fun can be healing too. Sometimes we put so much pressure on bettering our mental health in these broad strokes, when really it's the small bursts of joy that carry us through. Laughter is healing. Excitement is healing. Curiosity, exploration, childlike wonder that we sometimes lose as we get older. All of it is part of the process. All of it is healing. And remember, none of us are meant to do this alone, and you don't have to. If today's conversation stirred something in you, or if you just need someone to listen, I'd love to hear from you. You can reach me anytime at bravingthebrightside@gmail.com or connect on Instagram at braving_the_brightside. And if you have a story you feel called to share, but you're not ready to speak it yourself, I'll read it here for you on the show. Your voice matters in whatever way feels right for you. Thank you for spending a little time on the bright side with me today. Until next time, keep braving it. One step, one sunrise, one honest conversation, and yes, one moment of joy at a time. I'll see you next week.